everybody, welcome back to my channel. Before I get into this video, I would first like to wish you all a happy new year and I hope you're all having a swell time. 2019 is looking scary good, and let me tell you, I have never been more excited for, fresh for drawing ideas and fresh horror all wrapped in one. So with that being said, let's get into this video. So recently I've made a list of all of my favorite horror movies of 2018 that I personally feel are the best to me. Now, I know some of these movies that I'm about to share with you guys, maybe films that you've already seen and don't like, or maybe the other way around, or maybe you've seen these films but you're definitely interested in seeing them. And you're definitely interested in um you're definitely interested in them or not. To clarify with you all, there are some 2018 horror movies that I want to see but haven't seen, although I will definitely make it a mission to see them. There are a few in particular that I haven't seen, but I'm dying to see, and those movies just may top my current film list, or then again, may not. We'll just have to see when I watch them. So, yeah, and another thing I like to mention before I begin is that I usually suck at picking favorites because I literally debate on which movie should or shouldn't be on a list, and it's really exhausting. But thankfully, I managed to fit 7 films into this list. Literally a blessing. So, these films are all horror, and I'm going to review each of them, giving you a bit of an insight on what the film was about and basically how I felt about it after watching it. So I hope you guys enjoy, and without further ado, I'm just gonna get right into it. So the first movie on my list is called What Keeps You Alive. This movie stars Brittany Allen and Hannah Anderson. I don't know these actresses, but I have to say watching the performance in this film was like watching a real life situation happen before my eyes. So yeah, pretty incredible. This movie is about a lesbian couple who's celebrating their anniversary in a secluded cabin in the woods. But it seems from the moment they get there, something, if not a lot of things, changes. And Jules' normally loving wife, Jackie, she begins to reveal a previously unknown dark side, all leading up to this crazy revelation that pits Jules against Jackie in a terrifying fight to survive. Now, this film screams suspense thriller, a bit more than horror to me, because there's definitely a build-up effect throughout the beginning stages, and then it gradually takes its time until that one turning point in the middle of the movie, and from there, that's when the movie takes off with more fast-paced scenes and gruesome thriller vibes. I personally enjoyed watching this film from beginning to end. There was already so much mystery in the start of the film with Hannah Anderson's character, Jackie, that I just knew something crazy was about to happen when it came to her. I won't spoil it, but What Keeps You Alive is definitely one of those films where you're going to be rooting for the one who's being hunted and trying to survive from someone who isn't who they seem to be. And there are some good horror aspects of this film that I did notice as far as blood goes. I think the blood rank for this film from 0 to 10 would probably be a 6 or a 7, because there are some good bloody scenes in here. I think something else that I really love is the constant guessing of what's going to happen and waiting to see what'll happen. This film did a great job with keeping me on edge, and as the end of this movie approached, um, this really terrible thing happens that literally made me want to cry my eyes out. It made me have some second thoughts on how I was beginning to feel about the movie. But I learned when you keep on watching to the very end, it may reassure you. So that's what I did. And I absolutely loved it. It was the perfect end twist that got me really excited and in the end satisfied me. So if anyone of you have seen this movie, then you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, this was a really different take on horror, being more of a roller coaster than a haunted attraction. I feel it was very unique when the finale unraveled and kind of reversed itself to set the entirety of what the characters were undergoing throughout the film. The second movie on my list is called Mandy. This film was released on September 18th of 2018 and has gotten a lot of good reviews on it. And Mandy stars Nick Cage and Andrea Riseborough. And I hope I'm saying her name right, Riseborough. um yeah, that's her last name. Let me just say first of all that this movie is by far the most visually outstanding horror movie I have seen in 2018, or probably ever. What drew me to even want to watch this movie in the first place was the movie poster. As soon as I saw the movie poster, I immediately wanted to watch this movie. Like, I was so obsessed with the look and the art of the poster and just the clash of colors. That red and magenta that just fused together just made my eyes so happy. Like, my eyes like couldn't it was just so gripping. The colors were just so gripping. And if you guys haven't noticed by now, by my channel name, red is my favorite color, and red has never been displayed more beautifully in this film. From the blood to the gorgeous red lighting and magenta tinted over it, it really feels like an 80s fantasy that sparkled with horror and like madness, because that's what this movie is too, madness. The score of this film also proves the 80s like kind of tone to the movie. It lets it really gives off that kind of like 80s vibe. So let's get into what this movie's about. Okay, so in the Pacific Northwest in 1983, outsiders Red Miller and Mandy Bloom, who are played by Nick Cage and Andrea Riseborough, lead a peaceful existence, but when their pine scented haven is savagely destroyed by a cult led by the sadistic Jeremiah Sand, Red is catapulted into a phantasmagoric, I love that word, journey filled with bloody vengeance and laced with deadly fire. Okay, guys, so one thing for sure that I gotta say about Nick Cage's character, Red Miller, is that I love the fact that his name is Red. I just thought that was so cool that his name kind of mirrored the appearance of the movie. And I'm gonna get off topic real quick to mention another film in relation to this idea that'll hopefully help you guys understand why my attraction to is like so strong with movies like this. So Hellboy is the other character that I really love whose real name is Red. And that's the connection right there. So, like I said, there's something about the color red that just gets me so excited and engaged with it. Okay, back on topic. I think that this film really deserves an award for visual effects because I just couldn't take my eyes away from this movie just because of the visual perception and representation it exerts towards viewers. Also, the intro to this film is fire. Okay, fire. Then, when the film begins with this genuine connection between the two characters, Mandy and Red, I think it's established that with this being a horror movie, something's obviously going to go wrong with that relationship. And it's going to be like something bad's going to happen. So, when I watched the trailer for this film, it made me even more excited to watch it because of firstly the visuals and secondly the action behind the beautiful like color collision. There is a lot of action-packed moments in this film, along with horror-driven aspects. The gore is good, and the acting is pretty wild. I mean, it's Nick Cage we're talking about here. Like, I feel like every character he portrays has sort of this, like, wild presence, like this, like ruthless, untamed essence in them. So his performance in this film, I believe, was amazing. He delivers such a unique presence to this character, and I think with his reputation for starring in action-packed films, he doesn't disappoint. But he's not the only one whose acting is downright insane in this film. Like the antagonists in this film are pretty sinister and really gives off this creepy cult vibe that I think does well for what the movie's about. The director of this film, Panos Cosmatos, whose films all seem to have something in common when it comes to visual representation, really knows how to treat the viewer's eyes with color and lights. Also, his name even sounds visually appealing, if that makes sense. Cosmatos sounds too close to Cosmos. So, yeah, I think this film has a nice way of letting the audience soak in the different moments throughout the each and every scene. It really takes its time in such a way that it works well with the pace. There's a lot of scenes that were so insane that it made no sense. And the bad guys in this film are really like demented and just pure evil, and that alone was great. I admire its uniqueness and rarity from beginning to end. It's definitely one of those revenge kind of films where the loved one dies in a brutal death by some sick individuals, and the one who loved the victim goes on a vengeful killing spree, hunting those freaks down one by one. I can't tell you how many films has the same plot, but there's something about this one that gives a different quality to that plot, and I just loved it. I definitely recommend you watch this for those who haven't seen it. You'll probably like it as much as I do, or not. Either way, it won't hurt to watch it and find out. With Mandy, it goes on. Okay, so the third movie on my list is Hereditary. This film, I think, is probably one of the most talked about films of 2018, and it's being singled out for a reason. Before I get into my thoughts and feelings about this film, let me first tell you what it's about. So, when the grandmother slash matriarch of an estranged family passes away, the grandmother's daughter and grandchildren begin to unravel cryptic and increasingly terrifying secrets about their ancestry, trying to outrun the sinister fate they have inherited. This film stars Toni Collette, who I very much recognize after watching the trailer of this movie. Toni has also played the mother of Charlie Brewster in the 2011 remake of Fright Night. So when I found out she was in this movie, I immediately wanted to watch it simply because she's surprisingly gone from that not so good remake to a movie like this. And to me, that's improvement and success. So what I also spotted, I've also spotted a few other familiar faces in this film. You know, like Alex Wolff and Gabriel Byrne. It was my first time seeing Millie Chaparro, who plays the really creepy daughter in this film, and I must say I really enjoyed her acting the whole time. She was, like, probably like, yeah, the whole time she was on screen, I enjoyed her acting. Everyone's acting was unbelievably believable in this film. So that's one of the reasons why this movie made my list. Another reason why I enjoyed it so much is mostly the eerie, unsettling tone that it it gives, and the jump scares are so subtle, which to me makes a scare scarier than most scares in average horror movies. The scares in this movie are rather slow and very edgy, and there's a precise web that's being weaved and slowly unraveled until it's all over, and you thought you knew what was happening throughout the process, but now the outcome mostly makes no sense, and it is pretty difficult to wrap your head around what you just watched. That's what this movie is. I feel like this is a film you wouldn't watch if you're not a true horror head, because you'd probably be screwed up by the end of the movie and will start questioning your reality and what's really going on in the world. But if you are a true horror head, you would probably love this movie or really hate it. Honestly, what made Hereditary one of my faves of 2018 is the whole creepiness level of everything. Like, that was displayed during the movie, and from the plot to the characters and other interactions to the tragic and awful deaths. And when I say awful, I mean good awful, in the sense that the death scenes had me in awe. But I'll admit, by the end it lost me, because it seemed that everything that was being built up from the start of the film kind of lost its touch in terms of a really good climax, and I really wanted to understand what the heck was going on in the end, but I only partially knew, and that is really irritating to me, to not fully understand the ending of a movie. But overall, I've enjoyed what the film was anticipated to be, and horror is definitely present in this film. So I give it a props to that. The fourth movie on my list is The Strangers Prey at Night. Now, as most of you probably know, this film was released a lot earlier in 2018, and it's basically the sequel to The Strangers, which is the first and previous film that was released in 2008. That's a whole decade later that the sequel was like released. I'll admit, it kind of baffles me when a movie is made and all of a sudden a sequel comes out of nowhere several years later. I mean, I'm sure there's an explanation for it or a good reason why that happens. Maybe in between the long year stretch, the sequel's busy being made or something of that nature. I could be wrong. It's just something I've always wondered about. Anyways, to start off, I think it makes more sense that I explain what the first film's about. That way, you know what to expect from the sequel. So, The Strangers centers on a couple spending their weekend at a family vacation home, and after getting settled in their supposed to be peaceful stay, is anything but peaceful when three masked strangers begin to intrude and terrorize them. I watched this film at a young age, and it did well for its time. It was terrifying and had that unsettling kind of suspense. that did really creepy horror movies justice. But also, if you love horror films and you happen to watch a particular one over and over again, you'll probably find it a lot more entertaining than scary the first time you saw it. It's like watching a specific scene from a movie for the first time and having an instant reaction to it. Then, when you decide to watch it several more times, your reaction may be different. I'm like this with some films I've seen, in others, I still have the same reaction. I think The Stranger still remains creepy to this day, and I guess it depends on the person's level of, like, tolerance level of horror or like whatever. But with the sequel being released a decade later after the first installment, I was very excited but also a bit skeptical, being there are a lot of different sequels to different films that literally like don't live up to the expectations of the original, or just didn't it wasn't portrayed like the audience thought it would be portrayed. But after watching The Strangers Pray at Night, I have to say that I actually enjoyed it for the most part. Bailey Madison stars in this film, and I loved her performance. I've watched multiple interviews of her, like her acting, her talking about her acting career, and she is indeed a fan of horror. Her acting skills are superb, and I believe have only gotten better from Don't Be Afraid of the Dark to The Strangers Pray at Night. I remember how young she was in the film Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, and I remember like thinking, wow, she is good. Like, she's good. I also like the aesthetic of the film. It's very dark in certain scenes. There's neon light settings, and if you pay attention to the like different spots in the film, everything begins with a more with a like a move and subtle tone. Then things start to get edgy when one of the strangers begin to, like, knock on the door similar to what happened in the first film. I'm telling you, that scene is creepy. I definitely believe this is a must see, but if you haven't seen the first film, I recommend you watch that first before you watch the second one, just so you realize how scary these people are. Wildling is the fifth movie on my list and actually is one of my favorites outside of it being released in 2018. This film stars Belle Powley, Liv Tyler, and my main man, Brad Dourif. This is another movie that was released earlier in the year and has been liked and disliked by many. Of course, I liked it, being it's on my list, and there's many reasons why. But before I explain those reasons, I'm gonna tell you guys what this film's about. So, after childhood in a captivity under the care of a man who taught her to fear the outside world, a young woman sees her new freedom shattered by a series of unsettling events. So, this synopsis doesn't give away too much, which is a signal that it's a must see. Just like the synopsis, this film is very mysterious in the beginning, and soon little hints and clues begin to unravel the secrets behind the characters and the plot as a unit. I would consider this to be a horror movie in some angles, but overall, I see this film as more of a coming of age story that's sort of amplified with dark, disturbing themes and an overall, like, mythical standpoint. I feel like Wildling is so much more than a horror movie. It's dark and unsettling in some instances, which adds to the horror aspect, but there's an underlying message behind it all. I'd be spoiling it if I told you what that message was, so I'll just leave it up to you guys to find out what message is what message is being sent in through watching this film. Brad Dourif's performance never fails to amaze me, and his character reflects the importance of deciding what a person wants to do for their emotional sake and what a person supposedly has to do for everyone else's sake. Brad's character in this film seems to be going through a mental and emotional crisis, and Brad portrays it so well. I found this film to be really inspirational in a way, and a good watch when you want to be surprised. The sixth movie on my list is none other than Halloween, which is a film that has a pretty notorious history, with Jamie Lee Curtis having returned to this apparent sequel to this iconic franchise. The anticipation and expectations for this film were exceptionally high. But honestly, the only reason why this film is on my list is because it was genuinely original, and while watching, I felt like it was definitely returning to its roots in terms of Michael Myers walking around killing folk to get to his little sister, Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis. But aside from that, there were a few minor things about this film that caught my eye, um, and seemed to like make a huge difference in the entire movie as a whole. Don't get me wrong, I really love this movie, like I really did, but like the 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 kills were gruesome and shocking like it's supposed to be with Michael Myers. From what I saw, he seemed a lot more aggressive with his victims and more relentless than he's ever been. But I think the mistake that was made in this Halloween is the character relationship between Laurie and Michael. If you watch the original Halloween films and even Rob Zombie's version of Halloween, you remember that Michael and Laurie are brother and sister. But of course, Laurie was taken away from the Myers family as an infant after the incident where Michael killed his older sister and then sent off to a mental institution. And Laurie was eventually adopted by the Strodes, changing her last name from Myers to Strode. But here in this 2018 film, it's all changed to the point where there was never a kinship between Michael and Laurie. Supposedly, in here, the story goes after the occurrences in the original Halloween, Laurie is preparing to defend herself from the killing machine that nearly killed her 30 years ago. It's like Michael just wants to kill her because he never finished it in the first film, rather than him wanting to kill her because she's his sister and it's just his destiny to finish off what he left behind. This change affects the storyline and takes it a different route. This film is actually supposed to be replacing all of the original Halloween sequels and starting from scratch. And when I found out this information, I was instantly mortified about it because then I understood why certain things were the way they were in this film. I personally don't care for what that change that was made, but I did enjoy watching the film despite that minor mishap. Some people would agree with me and others wouldn't, but I wish that kind of change was never made. Like, I wish the original storyline was still carried through to this film, but what can I say? I did enjoy it for the horror, so I guess that's why it's on this list. A Quiet Place is the last film on my list, and is another film that was highly anticipated in 2018. A Quiet Place stars Emily Blunt and John Krasinski, who are ironically parents in the film and in real life, which would explain their believably unbelievable acting skills that convinces us that the post-apocalyptic situation taking place in this film could be terrifyingly true. This film centers on a family struggling to survive in a post-apocalyptic world swarmed with ferocious foreign creatures that hunt by sound. Now, I've watched plenty of end of the world cataclysm movies where there's zombies, aliens, or an evil virus turning the human race into full blown psychos. But this film is executed in such a unique way that it separates itself from those kind of films where the world is ending by some form of virus. The whole idea of living a quiet lifestyle to stay alive is just clever on so many levels. So the plot of the movie already impressed me. These monsters that'll hunt anything they hear are physically terrifying. It's almost hard to guess when they're coming. That extra tension adds more edge and uncertainty to what's going to happen next, and that works really well with this film. I would say the thrill is really excessive, and there's not a single moment while watching where you lose the edginess of the situation this family is in. There's a few shocking scenes that'll probably shift your emotion as the film continues on, and you'll be more and more like excited to watch it because of that. So that's how it went for me at least, and I did enjoy it overall. I'm sure most of you have already seen this and have your opinions on it, and I really love to hear or like read them in the comments. I know this movie got a lot of good reviews and is actually really high in ratings on Rotten Tomatoes and on Metacritic. And I'd also say that this is a horror in many ways for the subtle instances in this film that constantly repeats, but it gets even more horrifying as it repeats. It's like the perfect, repetitive yet subtly enhanced thriller slash horror, and I have to applaud it for that. I don't really have anything bad to say about this film, honestly. I thought it was fantastic, and I think anyone who knows horror would enjoy it too. So, what did you guys think about this film? Did you like it, or was it not your kind of flick for whatever reason? But whatever you feel like, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As I said before, this is the last film on my list, which concludes this video, and will bring even more interesting videos of mine in the future regarding movies that I love and can share with you guys. Um, Thank you everyone for watching. Remember to like this video and subscribe and follow me on Instagram. I'm working on some new drawings for this year and have gotten some really good original art ideas that I'd love to eventually share with you guys once they're finally established. So without, like spoiling any of that stuff, I'm just gonna end this video. Thank you for watching and Happy New Year.